welcome. Why does Sans bleed? If you've ever wondered that before, today's your lucky day. I mean, it's not as if anyone has ever tackled this subject before. So, I have 5 100% original do not steal theories as to why he bleeds. We're gonna weigh the evidence for each of them and finally solve this long-standing mystery. I've used quite a few Tumblr posts for the research of this video. The links to all of them will be in the description below. And special shout out to Home for Stuff. Their post on why Sans bleeds is very good, and I will be stealing all their arguments, so make sure to check them out. The first theory is the most obvious, and it's that Sans bleeds real blood. At first glance, this theory seems impossible. It's well established in Undertale that monsters are made of magic and don't have blood. While monsters are mostly made of magic, human beings are mostly made of water. But there are 2 ways for this theory to still be true. 1. Sans has blood because he's from Deltarune, a world where monsters have blood. 2. Sans has blood because he isn't a monster at all. Let's start with number 1. Sans has blood because he's from Deltarune. There are hints throughout the game that Sans isn't from Undertale's world. I'm sure most of you are aware of these hints, so I'll make things quick. The first hint comes at the beginning of the game, when you first enter Snowdin. If you talk to the shopkeeper, she'll have this to say about the Skeleton Brothers. If you're bored, you can sit outside and watch those wacky skeletons do their thing. There's 2 of them, brothers I think. They just showed up one day and asserted themselves. So not only are Sans and Papyrus not from the area, but it seems they randomly and abruptly moved to Snowdin. I wonder why they moved in so quickly. During a Q&A for Papyrus, someone asked him what his life was like before he moved to Snowdin. Well, there was green grass and, hey, shower's free. Finally! Sans, finish the question for me. Sure, the question finished. Wow, he only got a question out and it already reveals so much. Green grass. The only place in the entire underground with green grass is Asgore's garden and those 2 grass patches in the ruins. Though I'm not sure the green stuff in Asgore's garden is grass or just like flower stems or something. Considering the fact that Papyrus doesn't recognize Toriel, he definitely never lived in the ruins. And it also wouldn't make sense for him to live in Asgore's castle. But you know someplace that does have a lot of green grass? Hometown. Well, technically the grass is more yellowish than green, but that's because it's fall. I find it incredibly odd how quickly Sans interrupts Papyrus, almost like he's trying to stop him from saying too much. I mean, if they used to live somewhere mundane in the underground like the city, why would that be so shocking? Why does Sans, and by extension Toby, act like this is some big mystery? Could it be that Sans and Papyrus are from Deltarune and that revealing that fact would spoil Deltarune's story? Maybe, maybe not. At the very least, it seems Sans and Papyrus aren't from the underground. This fact is further supported by Sans' dialogue during his boss fight. Look, I gave up trying to go back a long time ago, and getting to the surface doesn't appeal anymore either. Where exactly was he trying to get back to? Is it the place he used to live in before he had to abruptly move to Snowdin? It's clearly not somewhere in the underground, because if it was, why wouldn't he just move back? The place in question is clearly out of reach. It's also likely somewhere he was forcefully displaced from, which would explain why he suddenly showed up in Snowdin. But where is he from? Well, what if he's from a parallel universe? This may seem a bit out of left field, but Sans has very strong connections to like parallel universes and alternate timelines and time travel and all this wacky stuff. Firstly, he reads quantum physics books in his spare time. A famous theory in quantum physics is the many worlds interpretation. It's a theory that postulates that there are many worlds that exist in parallel to our own. It seems that Sans put his quantum physics knowledge to good use because he seems to know how to manipulate space and time. He does weird things with his attack, which I'm not sure if you would consider this like time rewinding or like reality manipulation. Kind of reminds me of time rewinding. It kind of reminds me of time rewinding because it's sort of like the Flowey attacks. Anyway, some tomfoolery is afoot. He has this inexplicable ability to teleport. He also seems to be aware of game mechanics, which is not something that every character is aware of. He also alludes to knowing about saving and loading several times throughout the game, like when he makes a tongue-in-cheek joke about us never dying, clearly aware that we have died before and just reloaded our save. Saving and loading is basically just time traveling, which means that he knows time traveling is a thing. He even accuses us of being a time traveler. And then there's all the time travel talk in his actual boss fight, which I'll talk about later. The reason I bring this up is to show that he has intimate knowledge of not only alternate timelines, but parallel universes. Could it be that he knows so much about this topic because he himself is from a parallel universe? Could he be brushing up on his quantum physics so that he can figure out how to get back home to his parallel universe? This theory is further supported by the contents of his basement. After verifying that Frisk is a time traveler, he gives him access to his basement. Inside the basement are blueprints written in illegible handwriting and a broken machine. In one of the drawers, there's a picture of Sans with people we don't recognize. On the back of it, it says, "Don't forget." Could this be a picture of him and the fun gang from Deltarune that he's trying to remember? Or more like he's trying to stop himself from forgetting? It seems like him and the fun gang will become closer in future chapters. He even asks Chris to hang out with his brother, Papyrus. And coincidentally, "Don't forget" is also the main theme of Deltarune. And then there's the machine itself. It's broken, and according to Toby Fox, it can never be fixed. Is it possible that this broken machine is the reason Sans has such a fatalistic attitude? Is it possible that he used this machine to travel to Undertale's world, but got stranded after it broke? And did he lose all hope after realizing no one can fix it? Is this why he's lazy and can't find many reasons to give life his all? The final piece of evidence comes from the river person, who tells us to beware of the man that came from the other world. Considering all the evidence I just went over, I think you can guess who this is referring to. Okay, so I just went on a huge ass explanation of why Sans is from Deltarune. The reason I'm bringing this up is because there's evidence that monsters in Deltarune have blood, which is different from the monsters in Undertale. So if Sans is from Deltarune, it explains why he bleeds despite none of the other monsters bleeding when we kill them. There are a couple lines that prove this. One of them comes from Susie, who says, "Everybody bleeds, right?" Another comes from the IC guy, who says, "The pizza sauce is boiling red, burbling, burning like my blood yearns for battle." This castle's white wizard relegated me to this healing chamber, but my blood is boiling for battle. Also, there's an unused sprite in the game's files of Susie with a bloody knee, I think, or is it a bloody hand? I can't really tell. Anyway, she's bleeding, which is, pretty much concrete evidence that monsters can bleed in this timeline when they can't in Undertale. But things are more complicated than that because there are also lines in Deltarune that make it clear monsters don't have blood. Ooh, are you the human that lives at the top of town? Wow, my mommy told me about you. Does it hurt to be made of blood? Now, I've heard some people say that this kid doesn't know what he's talking about. This is just some dumb child, okay? So you can't take anything they say seriously. Firstly, from a writing perspective, isn't that insanely confusing? To just say that monsters don't have blood, but secretly they actually do, and this child is just confused because they're just confused, and you're just supposed to read their mind and know this. It just seems like a very confusing writing decision. Also, I remember being a little kid and I knew very, very basic things about myself, like if I was made of blood, right? So why would I ask someone, does it hurt to be made of blood? Obviously not. I'm made of blood too. No. Anyway, sorry, let's get back. There are other confusing blood-related lines, like how Lancer seems to know that Lightners have blood. Because my guys are about to smash you into blood. Lots of blood, splooshing blood, very gross and bad. Why does he know what blood is? Did his dad tell him about it? I mean, I get the impression the king did talk to the knight who is a Lightner, so maybe the knight told him Lightners have blood and then he told his son. But it's just confusing. I think what's really happening here is there's just a little bit of sloppy writing. I think Toby Fox made a mistake and thoughtlessly included some blood-related figures of speech in Deltarune's dialogue without really considering the implications this would have on the world. Because "my blood is boiling" and "everybody bleeds" are common sayings. The IC and Lancer lines are clearly jokes, and the Susie line is just her being edgy. So it's possible Toby just wrote these lines for the sake of comedy and didn't really expect people to take them that seriously. I mean, yes, he is a good writer. This seems pretty sloppy, but he's a human being who makes mistakes. These are just throwaway lines, so it may not mean anything. Also, to address the unused sprite, it's, unused and therefore not canon. And you can say, well, why did he make the sprite in the first place? Monsters can't bleed. Did he forgore? I mean, possibly. Maybe that's why it wasn't included in the final game. Because this isn't the first time he forgore a minor world-building detail. More on that later. With all that being said, the nature of monsters and blood is very unclear, and it kind of seems like monsters don't have blood in either Deltarune or Undertale, which would mean Sans wouldn't bleed, regardless of what world he's from. So this theory is likely false. Then again, it is possible my interpretation of the dialogue is wrong, so I'm not gonna dismiss this theory outright. but it's not the most convincing theory just because there are just some confusion on if monsters really do have blood or if this is just a writing mistake. So until future chapters come out and there's more clarification, I'm not going to promote this theory. So now let's move on to reason 2. Sans bleeds because he's not a monster at all. This may be giving you flashbacks to the Sans is Nest theory, but I don't think we should just wholesale dismiss an idea because it seems silly at first. That being said, there are a lot of hurdles this theory has to jump through before it can even be considered. The first being, Sans sure doesn't look like a human, but it's possible that Sans is like a dead human who was resurrected with the power of determination, sort of like a zombie, which would explain his undead appearance. Determination does let you defy death. There's even a theory that Chris is also dead and persists due to sheer determination. But if Sans is a human, then where is his human soul? At the end of the pacifist route, when Flowey gains control of everyone's souls, he doesn't mention anything about Sans having a human soul. Recall that Flowey and Asriel's objective is to steal Frisk's soul so he can gain godlike abilities and reset the timeline. If Sans had a human soul, why wouldn't he just use his and forget about Frisk? Did he forgore? A possible explanation for this is Sans lost his human soul when he died and exists as an undead, soulless creature, kind of similar to Chara, but this can't be true either, simply because Sans can become a lost soul, which implies Flowey stole his soul to begin with. This theory, so far, is profoundly weak, but another problem is if Sans is a human, then what is Papyrus? Is he also a human? They are brothers after all. If he is a human, why doesn't he know what the sun is? Why is he unable to recognize other humans? Why does he not have a human soul either? And why doesn't he bleed when we kill him? Also, if Sans is undead, why does he have blood at all? If he's a full-blown skeleton, surely by now the blood's all been dried up. In conclusion, Sans is a monster, and if monsters don't have blood, blood theory is not true. So, let's move on to the next theory. This theory states that Sans bleeds because of the bone marrow in his bones. He is, after all, a skeleton. This theory seems kinda promising, but it can be easily debunked. The entire purpose of bone marrow is to make blood, and as I've already proven, monsters don't have blood, so having bone marrow would serve no purpose. Of course, it's always possible that my interpretation of Deltarune's dialogue is wrong, and monsters do have blood, at least monsters from Deltarune have blood, so they would have bone marrow technically, but if Sans is from Deltarune and has blood, then the red stuff is blood, right? Not just bone marrow. So blood theory would be true, not bone marrow theory. So regardless of what's happening, bone marrow theory would not be the best explanation for what's going on. So I'm dismissing it. Next is determination theory. This is a classic. This theory states that before confronting us, Sans injected himself with liquid determination. When we slash open his chest, the liquid determination is literally seeping out of him. The reason it looks red is because determination is red. It's believed he got this liquid determination from Alphys, who uses liquid determination in her experiments. There are a lot of connections between Sans and Alphys, and I believe he probably did work with her on scientific matters. Whether he was an official employee of the labs or not, I think he was involved with Alphys to some extent. He may have even been one of the people Gaster refers to in entry 17. The first hint that the two work together is the way Sans and Alphys interact with each other at the end of the pacifist route. We're gonna be able to watch anime online? Of course, Undyne. What do you think we've been fighting for all along? Yeah, whoops. Jinx, I knew you were gonna make that joke. Wait, Alphys, I didn't know you knew Sans. Well, doesn't everybody? They joke around like they're old friends. Alphys seems uncomfortable when Papyrus asks if they know each other, so Sans steps in and brushes off the question, like usual. Why are they being so secretive about their friendship? Could it be that she knows about his situation? Something he wants to keep secret? I think it's weird that these two are friends. How exactly did they meet when Sans lives in Soden and Alphys lives all the way in Hotland and she doesn't really go outside that often except to go to the trash zone and Could it be that Sans got stranded in Soden, so he went to the current royal scientist for help fixing his machine? Could that be how they met? After all, the writing on the machine's blueprint is described as illegible, and we know that Sans' handwriting is readable because of the note he leaves in his room. The narration makes no mention of his handwriting being being illegible. But you know whose handwriting is illegible? Alfie's. Her handwriting is described as chicken scratch, and when she leaves us a note about the true labs, the narration says we're barely able to make out what she says. I've heard a lot of people say that Gaster wrote the blueprints, since the illegible handwriting could be Wingding's. I'm not saying that this is impossible, but for the sake of this theory, I'm just gonna assume it's Alfie's. Another piece of evidence that Sans and Alfie's might have worked together comes from his boss fight. Our reports show a massive anomaly in the space-time continuum. Timelines jumping left and right, stopping and starting, until suddenly everything ends. That's your fault, isn't it? What does he mean by our reports? Could he be referring to the lab reports he got from Alfie's? Let me ask you something. How can Sans detect anomalies in the space-time continuum without specialized equipment? Specialized equipment from, say, a lab? Kinda sounds like him and Alfie's were trying to figure out how to stop us from rampaging through the underground. They probably noticed how powerful we were, so they analyzed our abilities. Maybe in the genocide route, Sans also suspected we were a time traveler, so Alfie's ran a couple of reports on the timeline to confirm this. Another interesting line in his boss fight is this: "You're, very determined, aren't you? You'll never give up, even if there's, absolutely no benefit to persevering whatsoever. But now, you've reached the end. There's nothing left for you now. So, in my personal opinion, the most determined thing you can do here is, completely give up." Maybe I'm reading too much into things, but why does he use the term determination? Yes, this term is used by the narration a lot, but it's not really something characters say out loud except in very specific circumstances, like the true lab entries. In fact, I counted, and determination is only said out loud 17 times, which is, not that much. The term determination was coined by Alfie, so the fact that Sans uses that language is very interesting. Remember that determination is not just a personality trait, it's also a substance that can give people supernatural abilities. Abilities like the ability to save and load, and the ability to persist after death. My theory is, after we started slaughtering monsters, Sans and Alfie's, and I guess also Mettaton, had an emergency meeting. They all wanted to know how a single human child could kill so many monsters, including Undyne the Undying. They ran some reports and found anomalies in the timeline. Sans shared that he suspected we were a time traveler, since we're always acting like we know what's about to happen. Alfie's realized we may have this ability because of determination. The reports also indicated that the timeline was about to end, and they figured it was because of us. So they made a plan. Alfie's would try to evacuate as many people as possible, Mettaton would try to slow us down when we got to Hotland, and if it came to it, Sans would confront us. She gave Sans some liquid determination, which she had from previous experiments. She did this because without it, Sans wouldn't stand a chance against someone as determined as us. Sans knew he couldn't stop us even if he killed us because we would just reset the timeline. So he would try to make us lose determination and give up. He did this by killing us over and over again. When that didn't work, he tried to wait things out, hoping we would get bored and give up. But, as we know, that didn't work. We killed him, and in his dying moments, the liquid determination seeped out of his wounds. Fanfiction time over. As much as I like this theory, there are some problems with it. Knowing how dangerous liquid determination was, would Alfie's really give it to Sans? She knew that a monster's body couldn't handle large amounts of determination and would break down. So wouldn't giving him determination make him weaker? I guess it's possible Sans took the good stuff without Alfie's permission, but that still doesn't explain why he didn't melt, since injecting determination into monsters tends to do that. Maybe he was careful with the amount he injected, but there are still other problems with this theory. You think after literally injecting yourself with determination you would, be determined, but Sans' dialogue suggests otherwise. We'll just end up right back here, without any memory of it, right? To be blunt, it makes it hard to give it my all. Another problem with this theory is we know monsters won't bleed, even if they're highly determined. First, there's Undyne, who was so determined in her boss fight, she literally starts to melt, just like the amalgamates. And she doesn't bleed at any time during her boss fight. You could counter this by saying she hadn't injected herself with determination, she was just determined. But determination is determination. It doesn't matter if it's naturally occurring or made in a lab. Surely it should have the same color, right? And should cause the same reactions on the body. There's also Flowey, who was literally injected with determination and never bleeds. I guess you could argue that the determination dried up or something, but he clearly still has it since he's still alive and was at one point the most determined creature in the underground. Another problem with this theory is that the shade of red of the soul, which is supposed to be the same color as determination, doesn't have the same hex code as the blood. But you know what does have the same hex code as the blood? Ketchup. We in the business call that foreshadowing. It's also possible that determination isn't red at all. In fact, there's loads more evidence that it's yellow. Let me explain why by going on another long, rambling tangent. Shout out to No Chocolate. They're the GOAT, so make sure to check out their theories on determination. In fact, just read all their blogs. Do it! But finish this video first. So, it's fanon that red represents determination because our soul is red and we're supposed to be super determined. But determination is written in yellow several times throughout the game. The save points are a similar shade of yellow, so is Flowey, who was injected with determination. Determination is the power that lets you save, and whenever you save, the text turns yellow. Now, I should point out that yellow is used to highlight important text throughout the game. It's a stylistic choice, so it may not be meant to connect determination to the color yellow. Also, the color yellow is already kind of associated with justice, so it'd be strange if it was also associated with determination. Though, to be fair, I always thought it was weird that people lump in determination with bravery, justice, integrity, kindness, perseverance, and patience, since determination is more like a force of nature than a personality trait. I don't know, can kindness give you superpowers? Anyway, I'm veering so far off track right now. The point is, there's far more evidence that determination is yellow than there is that it's red. So even if Sans injected himself with it, it's quite possible that his blood would have been yellow, not red. Tangent over. Let's get back to determination theory. The final thing that tears this theory apart is the fact that Sans dies, even after he injects himself with determination. You may say, well, of course he died, like... You literally slashed his chest in half. Of course he's gonna die. I mean, determination will make you stronger, not immortal. And the crueler your intentions are, the easier it is to kill a monster. So, you know, this doesn't really mean anything. Except determination literally does make you immortal. So why does he die? You may say, well, who says he died? We never saw him die on screen. And we never heard the little noise that plays when you kill a monster. What? For some reason, I was reading this all over Reddit, and it's like, it's not true. It's blatantly false. Like, you do hear it. You do hear the sound. You do hear it. And also, that sound doesn't just play when you kill a monster, it plays at the end of every encounter. Also, you gain levels when you kill him, right? So that means he's dead. I'm sorry, I'm going a little insane because it's inconceivable to me why people are constantly saying this on Reddit. It's false information. Have these people even played the game before? Like, sorry. It was just annoying me so much. Anyway, it's possible he didn't inject himself with enough determination to defy death, and it's also possible that he lost determination when, you know, it started seeping out of him, so that may be why he died. So I won't say this theory is impossible, it just has like a lot of problems with it, and I don't think it's really that likely. Now, let's move on to the next theory. But before we do that, if you're a fan of Undertale, don't skip. If you're a fan of Undertale, you should check out the rest of my channel. All I make is theories on Undertale and Deltarune. Try out one of my videos. If you end up liking it, consider subscribing. I don't post that often, so I won't clog up your feed. Alright, shameless plug over. Let's just get back to the theories. This theory is a classic. I'm sure we all remember reading this theory on like Tumblr or Reddit or YouTube comment sections back in 2015. This theory suggests that Sans' blood is actually ketchup that he drank before the boss fight. Sans has very strong connections to ketchup. It actually sounds kind of dumb now that I say it out loud, like Sans has very strong ties to Gaster and ketchup. But he does. He works with ketchup, he drinks ketchup straight from the bottle. On our date, he offers us ketchup, like the dude likes ketchup. And at first glance, these connections may seem like jokes, but are they really? Could it be foreshadowing? As I mentioned before, the shade of red that the ketchup uses is the same hex code as the blood. So, is the blood ketchup? If the blood is ketchup, why does Sans, like, do this? Like, why would he do this? Well, remember that his primary goal during his boss fight is to stop us through any means necessary. He knows that killing us won't stop us for good because we'll just reload our saved file and try again. So he wants to make us give up. You'll get bored here, if you haven't gotten bored already, I mean. And then, you'll finally quit. He kills us over and over again, makes our life as difficult as possible, stalls for as much time as possible, bargains with us, tricks us, guilt trips us, appeals to our humanity, anything to make us lose determination. This ketchup thing is just his last-ditch effort to make us feel guilty, so that we stop. And he knows it probably won't work, but he's gonna try anyway. I think this is most obvious when you actually kill him. I'm going to Grillby's. Papyrus, do you want anything? Like damn, that shit is gut-punching. It did bring a tear to my eye the first time I saw it. But let's be real here, he doesn't have dementia, he knows Papyrus is dead, he's just playing things up, trying to make us feel guilty so that we quit. And that's the theory in a nutshell. This theory does have some problems, so let's go over them. The biggest problem with this theory is the way monster food works, because it doesn't work in the same way human food works. To a human, monster food would be very interesting. As soon as you eat it, it converts perfectly into energy. This line implies that monster food doesn't take 6 hours to digest like human food does. You know, as soon as you eat it, it turns into energy. So even if Sans drank the ketchup, it wouldn't stick around in his body, it would just be instantly digested. So to account for this flaw, I'm gonna revise the theory slightly. Maybe Sans didn't drink the ketchup, maybe instead he slathered it on his chest. Ooh, slathered. Maybe I shouldn't have used that word. I don't like the way it came out, but you get what I mean. It would fit into the idea that this is a ruse, a purposeful attempt to guilt trip us, right? Another problem with this theory is the hex codes. So at first glance, the fact that ketchup and blood have the same hex code may sound like strong evidence, but this hex code is like the default red in MS Paint, so it's probably just a coincidence that they're the same color. I mean, this is not FNAF, so hex codes have never been that important. Also, the hex code of the soul is literally just red. Like, it's just the default red, the perfect red. So the fact that the soul and, I guess by extension, determination is not the same color as the blood, that doesn't mean anything, right? I don't think these hex codes are really that important. Alright, so other than the flaws I just brought up, there aren't many other flaws with this theory, other than I guess it sounds silly at first, like, really? It's fucking ketchup? But once you start to think about it, it kind of makes sense. Like, when I started researching for this video, I was like, it is not fucking ketchup, this is the worst theory ever. But now that I've actually, like, looked at all the evidence, I kind of believe it. So that is Ketchup Theory. Now, before I move on to the next theory, I want to quickly bring up, like, another theory that's very similar to this one. It's a theory that the blood is illusion magic. The same motive would apply. Sans is doing this to guilt trip us. This theory isn't held down by the monster food problem I brought up, but it also doesn't have any of the ketchup related connections to Sans. Also, I don't think Sans uses illusion magic. I could be wrong on that, but I've played this game dozens and dozens of times and I cannot recall a single instance of him using illusion magic. So yeah, I definitely think Ketchup Theory is stronger. So let's move on to the next theory. This one is self-explanatory. It's all one big plot hole. The reason Sans bleeds is because Toby Fox thought it'd be dramatic. That's it. It's not because he's a human or because he's from Deltarune. It's not ketchup. It's not determination. It's just the climactic killing blow at the end of a difficult boss fight. That's it. You know, this theory is impossible to disprove since there are no clear answers as to why Sans bleeds, right? But I just find this theory lame as hell. I mean, there are plot holes in Undertale, like the fact that the books say humans can't do magic, even though the intro shows them casting a magical spell to keep the monsters locked away, or how Frisk passes through the barrier at the end of the neutral route despite never absorbing Asgore's soul. Like, do you know how many times characters in this game say, you must absorb Asgore's soul to pass through the barrier? Like, I guess Toby forgore. Plot holes happen sometimes. I still think this game is very good, okay? I wouldn't devote my channel to this game if I thought it was bad. But I don't know, I just find the plot hole theory to be, you know, lame and boring. I can't disprove it, but I pretend I do not see. My money's on Ketchup Theory being true. Alrighty then, this is the end of the video, but what do you guys think? Do you think the blood is ketchup or something else? Make sure to leave all your thoughts and theories in the comments below, and make sure to like and subscribe. I mean, come on, I beat Sans twice for this video. If that doesn't deserve a like and sub, I don't know what does. I hope you all are having an amazing day. Thank you for watching this video. Bye bye.